Hey, it's Zave. I want to start this video by saying I really like Psyche. On my personal YouTube account, I've been subscribed to him for a little under 2 years. His content is really well done for the most part. His Fate Grand Order review is single-handedly one of the best reviews of a gacha game on the platform. He normally does very good work, tons of research, hands-on experience, and does a great job of substantiating his claims. With that being said, his Duet Night Abyss review / first impressions is by far one of the worst videos he's ever made. Today, I want to get into everything I disagreed with that he said and try to help other people understand why this review was so poorly received. One final thing, obviously don't harass him or anything like that. Like I said before, I really like him and his content, and I'm making this video because of how much I respect him and his opinion. This isn't beef or drama or anything like that. It's a casual disagreement, so let's get started. The first thing he brings up early into the review, and it's going to be a reoccurring point, is the way other players can get ahead. The fact that you can purchase commission manuals with premium currency is framed as a negative thing in his video. Since you can purchase these with premium currency, it is a fact that other players who can pay will get ahead of players who don't. My issue isn't that Psyche pointed this out, it's that he proposed this fact as if it was a negative thing for the game. It's not, and this will play a big factor in a lot of the points Psyche made. Duet Night Abyss most closely occupies the looter shooter genre. Other games in this genre are Destiny, Borderlands, The First Descendant, and the one that most heavily inspired DNA, Warframe. Looter shooters are almost exclusively PvE games, meaning an overwhelming majority of the content in the game will be players working together to take down AI-controlled enemies. Why is this important? DNA allowing the players to multiply the rewards they get using commission manuals is a genre norm. Warframe has similar things called boosters. You're able to purchase resource boosters, credit boosters, XP boosters, and even mod drop chance boosters with premium currency in Warframe, meaning that a player willing to spend on these boosters has an advantage over a player who doesn't. But that isn't a problem in Warframe or in DNA, because there's simply no negative outcome if another player gets ahead in progression. Player 1 being able to build their character faster than player 2 has no impact on player 2's experience. In fact, chances are they won't even notice who does and doesn't use commission manuals, and even if they do, the only result is that player 2 is going to have stronger allies on their team for co-op content. Proposing this as a negative just felt silly. The second point Psyche brings up is that acquiring and building up your characters and weapons is a time sink, and again, other players can get ahead if they just pay, which is true. It is a grind and it is a time sink to farm and build characters and weapons, and you can indeed pay to speed up or skip that process. Not only is this a genre norm, but other players getting ahead because they have more time to grind or have spent more money is not a negative. As I explained earlier, due to how the genre is structured, there is no tangible negative effect of player 2 progressing faster than player 1 or vice versa. The next point Psyche brings up is that the lack of a stamina system is a double-edged sword. Other players with more time can get ahead, and you're able to burn yourself out if you can play as much as you want. Once again, the freedom to grind as much as you want is another genre norm. You can infinitely grind prime parts in Warframe all you want. The freedom to grind what you want, when you want, and as much as you want is one of the biggest strengths of the genre. That level of player freedom is what the fan base loves. You know what one of the biggest criticisms of Blue Protocol Star Resonance was, and the reason I dropped the game after a few days and never did a video on it? They time gated your progression. Restricting player freedom in any way is almost never a good idea. As for the criticism of burnout, I think it was very odd that Psyche proposed this negative as if it isn't possible to burn out in games with a stamina system. HSR has a stamina system, and tons of creators have stepped back from that game due to feeling burnt out. I have friends who have quit various gacha games with stamina systems like Reverse 1999, Honkai Impact, and Aether Gazer, all due to being burnt out. Regardless of how much or how little the developer lets you play their game, you can burn out. Not to mention, there are tons of factors that play into a player becoming burnt out on a game. The stamina system or lack of one is near irrelevant. Citing this as a negative towards DNA as if it was exclusive to it is a bit silly in my opinion. The next point, Psyche says that people will optimize the game and find the best way to run missions, best team setups, weapons, characters, etc. Once again, not only is this a genre norm, this is a gaming norm. This happens in every single type of game. In Elden Ring, there are optimal ways and exploits to farm levels. Literally every MMORPG has an optimal farming spot. Destiny has a history with optimal weapons. Shout out to the Galahorn. Proposing this as a DNA exclusive problem is a bit odd. Even so, I'd push back, saying it doesn't matter. Once again, due to how DNA is structured and the content in the game, whether you run a fully optimized loadout or not has no effect on from anything but the speed of your farming. You don't need to be raid ready. There aren't limited resources you're racing for. You're not competing with other players. There's no real money on a line. There's no tangible negative effect of not optimizing your gameplay. Player freedom is key. The next point. Psyche states concerns of player retention due to repetition, and then cites Genshin Impact mobile stats. Two major points here. Number one, once again, the repetition is also, say it with me now, a genre norm. Ask a Warframe player how many relics they've cracked to get their latest prime. Ask a Destiny player how many runs it took them to get their latest god roll. Ask a First Descendants player how the sword grind was before they patched it. Hell, even outside of looter shooters, MMOs are the biggest culprit of repetitive gameplay. Black Desert Online will literally give you quests to slay hundreds of the same enemy. Have you ever leveled in like MapleStory or Elsword? All of these games are games that have held an active player base for years, some for well over a decade. MapleStory might be going on too. My point is, if the repetition was a deterring factor for a player, not only would they not play DNA regardless, they wouldn't play any looter shooter or MMO. Proposing this as a problem as if it applies to DNA exclusively is odd, but the reason why he did that was because of the next point. Number two, I believe Psyche is under the impression that DNA is trying to cater to and capture people who mainly play gacha games as their audience. I believe this because the stats that he used were for mobile players of Genshin Impact. I can safely assure you, DNA is not trying to capture mobile Genshin Impact players or people who only play gacha games. DNA's target audience is, well, me and people like me. People who have played either looter shooters, MMOs, or similar games, but have also played gacha games. Those who prefer player freedom, expression, earning weapons and characters through in-game content. That's DNA's target audience. The next point, and this one's a doozy. Psyche suggests removing grinding and building characters, saying you should only level characters from running stages. Weapons should come maxed out already, and remove grinding for gear. Characters should come with presets instead of having to build them yourself. I'll be honest, this is one of his weakest points. This literally defeats the purpose of the genre. That's like removing modding and leveling for Warframe, or removing weapon modding and enhancements from Destiny. Part of the fun of the genre is working for and creating your own builds. If you take them out, you're transforming the game into an entirely different one, and I'd argue it'd be a worse one. The next point, Psyche says, once again, if you don't want to spend time on this, pay this up, in reference to the grind, as if it's a negative. This is a point that I want to elaborate on because not just Psyche, but a lot of other content creators and players don't seem to understand how a game like this makes money. All the content in the game is free. The game itself is free, and you can technically get every single thing in the game for free. All of the future updates and content patches are free. There's no paid DLC or expansions. It's all free. Cosmetics are the main way that the devs of a game like this make money, but it's not the only way. Warframe allows you to pay for boosters, as we discussed earlier, but also other things. Warframes that you don't feel like grinding, weapons too, slots in your inventory for holding all of your warframes and weapons. When new gameplay mechanics are introduced, like Arcwing, Railjack, Void Rigs, or deployable art guns, all that content is unlocked through in-game quests. But if you don't feel like playing it, you can purchase the mechanics directly. DNA is similar. Absolutely everything is free, but if you don't want to farm for a character, their copies, or a weapon, you can pay for it. You can also buy commission manuals to make your farming a lot quicker. You can pay for hammers to skip the wait time in the forge, and then there are all the cosmetics. Proposing this method of monetization as a drawback of the game is genuinely wild to me. From all the takes that I've seen, the only reasonable one about DNA's monetization is that there's simply not enough cosmetics in the game yet. Everything else has been either misunderstanding or just wrong. The next point, Psyche says gambling is fun. He states that while having no gacha is better than having gacha, mobile players might not like it. For this, I'll simply restate what I said earlier. Different target audience. DNA isn't aiming for the gacha addicted player who only plays their game for 5 minutes a day after losing their fifth 50-50 in a row. They're looking for fans of looter shooters, MMOs, and other adjacent games who happen to have dabbled in gacha. It may seem niche, but there are more of us than you'd expect. The next point, Psyche explains his solution to the no gacha system. His solution is to still have a premium currency, earnable by dailies and whatnot, but instead of a gacha banner, it'll have a one-time purchase character button. This is basically already DNA's system, but worse. You can grind for any character you want or just flat out buy them. I genuinely don't know what he was trying to point out with this solution, and I'm hoping that I may have misunderstood it, because otherwise it's literally just a worse solution. The next point, Psyche says DNA's system isn't an objective improvement to what gachas have had in the past. I simply disagree. It just flat out is. I genuinely cannot fathom who would want a system where you have to potentially pay hundreds of dollars for a character. If Kuro Games came out tomorrow and said for Wuthering Waves they would remove the character and weapon gacha and replace it with making characters earnable through in-game content while focusing on cosmetics for monetization, no reasonable mind would be against that. Notice, I said reasonable mind. We'll get back to that. The next point, Psyche says that combat is boring and cites elemental interactions and rotations as examples of good combat. This blew my mind. I assume he's referring to Genshin's combat when saying elemental reactions. Genshin's combat is one of its weakest aspects. It has some of the most boring and unengaging combat of all the popular gachas. I assume rotations was referring to Wuthering Waves, and while I do enjoy Wuthering Waves combat, just adding rotations or team swapping would not fix DNA's combat. Number 2, I can see the sentiment that combat can get boring. Now for me personally, I actually enjoy the combat despite my issues with it, which I pointed out in my first impressions video. Psyche says that there is a lack of variety in the characters' playstyles, but that's just wrong. Let's take a look at 4 different characters: Lisbel, Lyn, Lady Niffle, and Sybil. Lisbel is a melee-focused character who utilizes mobility and deals heavy melee damage with her Consonance weapon. If you play Warframe, it's just an exalted weapon. If you play Destiny, it's the weapon she gets in her super. She has a heavily damaging mobility skill, meaning you want to be constantly flipping from enemy group to keep your combo up, and doing heavy AoE damage with your wide sword swings and charged attack. She also has her own personal combo mechanic, so she's able to reach some pretty high damage numbers if you're utilizing her entire kit. Lyn is different though. Lyn is a character who focuses on dealing range damage. Her ult is her most noticeable feature, making her stand still and wipe the map quickly with ranged attacks, but her skill is also useful for single target damage. She marks an enemy and then builds stacks on them when doing range damage. Once the stacks reach their max, it pops, dealing a big burst of damage to the enemy. Lady Niffle is a skill-based character. Her skill is a spammable AoE burst of damage, and her ult enhances her skill and makes it cost no energy for the duration of the ult, allowing her to group enemies, clear crowds, and burst down bosses. She doesn't really utilize weapon damage at all. Finally, Sybil. Sybil's kit all works together. Her ultimate places an orb that links to nearby enemies. When the orb is damaged, the enemies also take a portion of the damage. Her passive is that when she triggers a bonus effect, for Warframe players that's just a status proc, she gains a unique resource called Might of Thunder. She then spends this resource to use her skill to deal heavy damage in an area, or enhance her ultimate. So you place your ult, then damage it, gaining Might of Thunder, then spend that Might of Thunder to spam your skill and clear the map. Psyche's claim of character kits having no synergy or characters not having enough variety between them is just wrong. And the final point, I'll be addressing 2 quotes that Psyche said along the end of his video. Skins are not as profitable as trying to capture whales with dupes or signature weapons, and there's no point in taking the risk of going the gacha-less skin route. These 2 quotes take me back to the example I said earlier. No reasonable mind would be against a gacha-less system. I don't think Psyche is being very reasonable here. I've seen a lot of name calling going around. Some of the more inflammatory creators have been throwing around the term gacha brain rot or gacha addicts, and to an extent they have a point. While I don't agree with such a harsh label because, well, Superman taught me to practice kindness, I will say that there's a level of Stockholm syndrome with a lot of these people. They are unfortunately so accustomed to the abuse that the gacha monetization model has given them over the years that they feel it's the norm and cannot fathom a system outside of it working. This is a product of gachas being your main genre of game, especially over a long period of time. I know this because I could have gone down the same route. I started playing gachas back in 2013 when I was in middle school, playing Brave Frontier. Ever since then, gachas have been a part of my gaming habits. Over the years, I've spent thousands of dollars on gacha games. I remember the Baylord Yama banner in Hero Cantare getting $600 out of me. The Mysterious Heroine X banner in Fate Grand Order got hundreds out of me too. Cookie Run Kingdom brought me to financial ruin twice. Sega Heroes and Street Fighter Duel both made me relapse when I thought I was done. But even then, I knew there was better because I've always played other games alongside gachas. Final Fantasy, the Tales series, Monster Hunter, Cyberpunk, Risk of Rain, Warframe. All of these amazing game series from various genres that have been beyond successful, live service or not, all without gacha. It is possible. Duet Night Abyss can be successful without gacha. A gacha game can successfully transition to a non-gacha game. They just need to make a good game first. And I would argue, criticisms included, Duet Night Abyss is a good game. I sure hope it doesn't flop and then I look like a fucking idiot. And so, I'd like to remind everyone watching one more time, this isn't beef or drama or anything like that, just a simple disagreement. Leave your thoughts below, let me know what you think of this whole situation and Duet Night Abyss as a whole, and have yourself a damn good one.